Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Mark Rogers TV. I refrain from saying a bright and early Tuesday morning. It's a rather dark and early Tuesday morning, about 5:15 Eastern Time. And yes, this is a very unusual time for me to be live streaming here on YouTube as I'm actually finishing up my day at the regular job at the network job. But we, of course, run Mark Rogers TV 24/7 and 365, the voice of college football. So you're going to hear that term a number of times more frequently in the coming weeks and months. The voice of college football. Had a viewer, and I want to properly identify them. I'll look up the comment. It was about a month ago that in the process of making a comment to me, a viewer said, kind of, oh, by the way, in amongst making other comments and questions to me, said, since you are the de facto voice of college football, so forth and so on. And I thought, and I ran it by a few friends and some other people, and they said, that's it, the voice of college football. So that will probably be the new motto and tagline for Mark Rogers TV going forward, the voice of college football. For you, of course, the smart fan. We see a lot of people on the internet, whether it's writing or verbalizing a bunch of cliches and surface opinion and commentary and analysis of college football. We don't do that here at Mark Rogers TV. You may not agree with my opinion or my commentary or analysis, but you'll have to admit that I do my research and I watch a lot of college football and have for a number of years, and I do look into it. So please subscribe to my YouTube channel for the very best in college football coverage. We believe that we provide more and better quantity and quality, better and more college football content than anybody that you will find on YouTube or anywhere on the internet outside, of course, the major brands and labels, the networks, and the huge conglomerates that, of course, have staffs of 50, 100, and more. But in terms of the YouTube channel consisting of one individual or even a collection of individuals, I believe we provide more for you here at Mark Rogers TV and more quality, in-depth analysis of college football and what's happening with the teams across the nation than anywhere. 98 media contributors just in 2017, 98, many of them from the SEC network, from the ESPN networks, Big Ten networks, 247 Sports, Rivals, SB Nation, of course, right here at Mark Rogers TV. So please subscribe to my YouTube channel as I call up the live chat. I'm not going to be on for a long time here this morning. Just want to hit some news and notes quickly and some things that I came across here very recently. So say hi if you're jumping on the live stream this morning. I'm not going to expect a large audience at 5 o'clock Eastern time and 2 o'clock on the left coast, but I wanted to be able to post this video and get it out there live concerning some channel updates, but more specifically, something that I came across on Pick 6 previews. So again, subscribe to my YouTube channel for the very best in college football coverage. The audio versions, you can find those on Podbean, iTunes, and Stitcher. So I basically take all the conversations, all the analysis that you see here at Mark Rogers TV on YouTube and supply just the audio, strip down the audio to supply that for you on Podbean, iTunes, and Stitcher. Just search Mark Rogers TV. Over the last several weeks, of course, we've focused on recruiting with National Signing Day, the second signing period concluding the first Wednesday of February, which was, I believe, February 7th, that Wednesday. So I believe I counted correctly, 24 teams that we covered. All the major teams, USC, Ohio State, Alabama, Mississippi State, Florida, Tennessee, Georgia, Clemson, Miami, on down the list. 24 teams that we covered National Signing Day on. We're talking quarterback battles. I've looked at Syracuse, Arkansas. We have just scratched the surface. We released Washington State earlier. or will be later today. Personnel gains and losses, of course, a ton of college football players moving on to the next level and leaving their programs, but other guys coming in. So we're talking personnel gains and losses for the major programs and expectations. What are the expectations? And I find these conversations a little bit more intriguing for the likes of Syracuse and Arkansas, Washington State, those types of programs, rather than Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson. We know what their expectations are. It's to win a conference championship and compete for the national title. But for some of the mid-tier programs that have a number of challenges in play, like in Arkansas that we discussed with 247 Sports recently, I was intrigued to hear our contributors' take on Arkansas football and the expectations there. Coming up in the next several weeks, we'll do series on breakout players for 2018. That's been requested, so we will fulfill breakout players for 2018. Conference rankings. So I have crunched the numbers on all the Power 5 games in 2017, and I will present my yearly off-season conference rankings of the Power 5, which I believe is going to be closer than it's ever been. My playoff system, both my 8-team and my 16-team playoff systems, and I will give you a very good reason why I have 2 playoff proposals for college football. My scheduling formula. So very few people talk about the schedules, non-conference, and why they're broken in college football. I will address that very soon and give you my scheduling formula, which takes the scheduling process of non-conference scheduling out of the hands of the individual schools who have agendas and place it into a formula that provides equity. And of course, with spring football starting in just a few weeks across the country, we will provide previews of as many teams as we can possibly get to. If you're finding us for the first time, my name is Mark of MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. And you are the smart fan who have found us and the analysis that we provide on college football. This is for you, the smart fan. I totally appreciate and love the comments, the questions, the concerns, the debate, and the discussion that you provide. We need to hear from you. You really make this work. Give me the suggestions for content, anything else involving set design that we're going to be working on at some point soon this spring, and other factors. Again, content suggestions, contributor suggestions. I mentioned a few minutes ago, 98 contributors in 2017. We continue to reach out to more and more contributors, quality contributors from the likes of, as I mentioned, 247 Sports, Rivals, SB Nation, ESPN, the Big Ten Network, and so forth. But if you have a favorite out there, somebody that you would like to hear from here on Mark Rogers TV, let me know who that person is, and I will do my best to bring them on right here. I started this morning, right before I came on, in writing letters to sports information directors at the various schools to continue what we had started a few years ago and talking to some of the coaches directly right here on Mark Rogers TV. That's something that you're not going to see anywhere else except for the major networks, speaking directly to college football coaches in the FBS. We have spoken to, over the past 3 or 4 years, coaches, head coaches at San Jose State, Air Force, Fresno State, Cal, Oregon State, South Alabama, Tulsa, Ball State. Who am I missing? Several others that I can't come up with right now. And we've enjoyed those conversations. It's very time consuming to make all the contacts that need to be made and all the arrangements in regards to matching schedules of a head coach of an FBS program to come on here. So I've kind of given up in recent years because the payoff didn't exactly match the effort. but I'm going to give it another go and figure that this is a decent time, not a great time. It's never a great time to try to contact an FBS head coach to come on an internet program, but that I would try during this somewhat dead time between National Signing Day and the beginning of spring football to get some head coaches on here, and if not, some offensive and defensive coordinators, and hopefully some players as well. We think we've got the best channel on YouTube and the best platform across the internet for college football analysis and discussion and debate, but we want to make it that for sure. So we think we've got it. We're on the right track, but we want to leave no doubt. So I always invite your suggestions as well. If you've got a comment to leave, please join me right now. Let me know that you're here and leave me a comment or question. I wanted to bring up one topic off of just talking about my channel, but in addition, want to talk some meat and potatoes college football, because there was an article that was posted by Pick Six Previews that follow me on Twitter. I followed them back, and they provide a ton of great analysis on Pick Six. This one involves recruiting equaling winning. Now, that's pretty obvious. The teams that recruit the best win the most. If you look at the top 5 to 10 to 15 teams in the nation in the final polls each and every year, they're typically the teams that recruit the top 5 to 10 to 15 classes. There are some outliers. Michigan State, Wisconsin coach them up, as does Bill Snyder at Kansas State. And some other teams have underachieved, like LSU in recent years, which has not played up to its recruiting rankings. But generally, the recruiting rankings equal championships. This goes further. This goes further in depth. So think about the kids that are most important, the people that are most important in determining which programs are attractive. They're obviously the kids playing high school football right now. They're the kids that are playing elite level high school football. They are the most important in evaluating the current programs, because they're going to be making the decisions on where to be a student athlete and play football. So Pick Six talked to 224 recruits leaving high school football in the 2018 recruiting class to ask them about their perception of brand. And they simply asked them, if you were the number one recruit in the country, meaning that you could play anywhere you wanted, there were no limitations, where would you play? And then Pick Six came up with a formula in which they ranked the teams based on the player responses of where they would want to play most. Did you catch this? They went through all the FBS, not the FBS, but the Power 5 schools. Here are the results. The most attractive school by a slim margin from these 224 recruits. So let's keep in mind that there's about somewhere in the range, I believe, of 4,500 that sign each and every year out of high school football to play collegiately. So this is just a sampling of 224, but it still gives us an idea. It's still significant. Clemson, the most attractive college football program. That's not surprising right there. They're hip, they're chic, they're a newcomer to the elite. They have a head coach who shows that he loves his players, cares about his players, that he can relate to them. He's relatable in Dabo Swinney. Clemson's number 1. Ohio State is 2. Penn State is 3. Georgia, number 4. Certainly not a surprise with the work that Kirby Smart is doing and their appearance in the national championship game. Although I would guess that this poll was taken before Georgia made it to the championship game, but was having a great season before that. Oregon at 5. That's a bit of a surprise to me. USC at number 5 with a tie with Oregon. Miami 7, Oklahoma 8, Stanford 9, LSU 10. So I'm going to refresh the chat just to make sure I'm not missing any comments, questions, suggestions, anything that you want to hit me with before I sign off. But interesting article here by Mike Nowoswiat and James Moss from Pick Six. The rankings that surprised me just a bit in regards to, again, these are 224 high school recruits going to play college football, ranking the most attractive programs in the nation, top to bottom. So Michigan State at number 11 surprises me. Ranked ahead of Michigan at 17. Michigan State 11, Michigan 17. UCLA at number 12, Chip Kelly on the scene. Alabama down at number 19. So this doesn't really translate to reality. So again, these 224 recruits were asked if you were the number one player in the country and could play anywhere you want, there were no restrictions, where would you play? And Alabama finished number 19. That seems to be a bit inconsistent with what reality is. Louisville, it's 22. Nebraska at 21. Texas, obviously coming off a recruiting class that was number 3 in the nation, is number 20, according to these players polled. Tennessee, despite all the issues of coming off Butch Jones's tenure, which ended in disaster, an 0-8 finish, and just the PR standpoint, even before the debacle of trying to replace him, but how that tenure finished, coupled with the complete mess, unlike anything we've seen in recent times or maybe ever, a program the stature of Tennessee botching its way through replacing Butch Jones to recover to the point that Jeremy Pruitt hauled in a top 20 recruiting class, and they rank number 25 in this poll from these 224 student athletes, ranking the schools in terms of attraction. North Carolina at 27, coming off a down year under Larry Fedora, still recruited very well and finished in the top 25 to 30 in the nation. Who else surprises me? Ole Miss has seemed to somewhat weather the storm of the Hugh Freeze transgressions. Matt Luke has been able to hold that thing together and recruit well here in 2018. South Carolina doing much better than its number 32 ranking by these 224 football players entering college football. Nothing else really stands out. Again, Clemson is number 1, followed by Ohio State, Penn State, Georgia, Oregon, and USC. Miami, Oklahoma, Stanford, and LSU round out the top 10. I'm guessing that most of the 224 who were polled would not qualify for Stanford, but it was probably a good and wise selection by them to think, hey, if I had my choice to go anywhere, if I could combine academics and athletics, a football playing school that is also going to look tremendous on my resume going off into the professional world, it would be Stanford. So again, I'm only surprised by Michigan State ranking at number 11. That is extremely high. Alabama down at number 19, surpassed by the likes of Wisconsin. So these two guys, Nowoswiat and Moss, also break down what this means. So the brand ranking by these 224 incoming players. And then they also kind of break down what this all means. So their first conclusion that they come to is that you need multiple 5-star athletes to win national championships. And so on average, there are only 7 teams each recruiting season going back to 2000. So this is the last 18 recruiting classes. There are only 7 teams on average each year, each recruiting cycle, that are able to pull in at least 2 5-stars. This past season, that was just Clemson, Ohio State, Penn State, Georgia, USC, Alabama, and Texas. This is significant because most of our respondents have never been recruited by these top-tier colleges, yet despite all the phone calls, letters, text messages, unofficial visits, or any other obscure recruiting tactics that coaches deploy to attract elite talent, the final recruiting rankings align precisely with the high school demographics perceived brand rankings, meaning the perceived brand rankings from these high school athletes, 224 of them, line up, almost mirror the actual recruiting rankings. So the brands of these schools mean everything. So they came up with a tier 1 recruiting tier based on their 5-star delineation. Again, this is pick 6, evaluating that you need multiple 5 stars to win a national championship. And the teams that did that this recruiting cycle, Georgia, Clemson, USC, Penn State, Ohio State, Texas, and Alabama, versus the teams that would rank on that second tier of recruiting, which this particular recruiting cycle included Auburn, Miami, Notre Dame, Florida State, Texas A&M, Florida, LSU, Oklahoma, Oregon, and Washington. Teams in this second tier, the teams that I just named, what basically separates them is that they are able to land at least 5 to 10 4-stars. So the average program in Power 5 football lands 4.5 4-stars per recruiting year. And it shouldn't be a surprise to us that with 65 teams playing in the Power 5, so that excludes Notre Dame, BYU, Army, and UMass. If you take the 5 conferences, there are 65 teams in the Power 5 conferences. That 54 of those teams, on average, 54 of the 65 teams in the Power 5 grab up and sign half of the 4-stars. 54 of the 65 Power 5 teams recruit and sign half the 4-stars. The other entire 50%, half of the 4-stars, go to just 11 teams. Money also plays significantly into this as well. This Pick 6 article ranks the football programs in terms of revenue, and the revenue relates very closely to the rankings. There is a common denominator among the 3 that did not report revenue, unfortunately, because they are not state schools. Yes, Oregon, Miami, and Clemson. But they all 3 were in the top 7 in brand recognition and brand popularity. So what it comes down to is you have to have a brand that is perceived and recognized and likable to 18-year-olds. You also have to have the money to pull them in, to have the resources to go out and recruit, build up the facilities to their liking, and put out the type of football program that would attract these guys. So the brand recognition and likability, and number 2, the money, is crucial. And there was also a conclusion there that I found interesting, where there was a disconnect, and Wisconsin seemed to be the outlier, because the Wisconsin brand likability is number 16 in the country. Their money revenue is very high. I don't have the exact figures, but Wisconsin doing very well as a member of the Big Ten in terms of revenue. But in terms of grabbing elite athletes, Wisconsin just doesn't cut it. We always see them roughly 35th in the nation in the recruiting rankings. This particular year, they gained no 4-stars. They usually get 2 or 3 or 4, which is on average with the rest of the Power 5. And of course, Wisconsin has played much better than that. Interesting article again. Look it up. Pick 6, How to Win in Recruiting. Brands Win Championships by Mike Nawaswiat and James Moss. Okay. I didn't expect too many comments at 5 o'clock in the morning. We do have Papadoc 19, Oregon, and Clemson are state schools. You know, I initially thought that, and they must be. But after looking at this, I was led to believe that they weren't. But I certainly thought that those two were state schools. Miami, State of the U's, Cam Underwood is a regular guest on here and has clarified for us many times that Miami is, of course, not a state school. This is Mark Rogers TV. We're the voice of college football for you, the smart fan, with in-depth analysis each and every day, 24/7, 365. Of course, as we mentioned off the top, subscribe to my YouTube channel for the very best in college football coverage. 98 media contributors in 2017 from the likes of 247 Sports, Rivals, SB Nation, ESPN, the SEC Network, and the Big Ten Network. Catch the audio. If you're into the audio, don't want to look at me, just want to hear the audio from myself and from the guests. Podbean, iTunes, and Stitcher. Just search Mark Rogers TV. Recruiting insight from 24 teams over the past few weeks. Quarterback battles, we're talking that up, as well as personnel gains and losses for 2018. And the intriguing discussion for me, expectations of programs. So be listening for those videos as well. Coming up soon, breakout players for 2018. Conference rankings. I love crunching the numbers on these, and it's a tight battle, the tightest battle since I've been crunching these numbers, and certainly well before the SEC started to dominate in the mid-2000s with its string of national championships. The conference rankings will be interesting to explore again. I'm going to have that series released very soon, ranking the Power 5 conferences based on the results of 2017. I will give you my playoff system, both the 8-team and the 16-team, and there's a reason why I've got 2 playoff proposals. Scheduling formula, take it out of the hands of the schools and give it to a committee. And actually, not even a committee, it's just a formula that I've built that's very simple, but I believe effective, and I will let you be the judge as well. And of course, we're going to preview spring football. Please subscribe right here to Mark Rogers TV. We will have content coming your way. We've got a number of guests coming up on Wednesday night in particular, and have a number of videos yet to release very, very soon. So thanks for joining me on this very, very early Tuesday morning at 5 a.m. Hope you have a great day, and come back, and we will obviously be discussing and debating college football. We invite your suggestions and your comments always right here at Mark Rogers TV. See you next time.